Previously on agentpalmer.com, I recap the 2025 Tour de France, Casthen Gain expands Hansen's epic Graven world, and I may have to get some lessons from Brian to better keep the beat. This is the Palmer Files, episode 155, with the return of the original Palmer Files guest, Bill Sweeney. He's back to tackle some of Proust's Questionnaire, and aside from explaining what this isn't, we'll discuss Skype, basements and attics, poetry, the flow state, and much, much more. Are you ready? Let's do the show! Hello and welcome to the Palmer Files. I'm your host, Jason Thursik, also known as Agent Palmer, and on this 155th episode is my friend Bill Sweeney. Bill is back after a very long time, having not appeared on the show since episode 101. But what is this? What has he returned for? This is a series of episodes that will be released over the course of the next few months, where my friends, specifically those from the friendship episodes, get to come on the show and ask me a select few questions from Proust Questionnaire. The first one with Chris Meyer was episode 152. There are 17 questions. Bill is going second, so he gets to choose from what remains. Chris only used 3, so there's still plenty to choose from. Coming soon will be Chris Hughes, then Jason Zapata, and who knows what happens with the remainder of the questions at this time. A link to the Proust Questionnaire Wikipedia entry is in the show notes if you want a history lesson. I won't spoil which questions Bill asks, but know that we talk about the end of the road for Skype, discuss basements and attics, and how everyone is weird. Plus, is poetry a young man's game? Clive Barker, Preacher, and Bill has more TV pitches than a Hollywood waiter. All of this and much, much more is coming your way shortly. But first, remember that if you want to discuss this episode as you listen or afterwards, you can find all related ways to contact Bill and myself in the show notes. I highly suggest you check out wickedtheory.com to see what Bill may or may not be up to. Don't forget you can see all of my writings and rantings on agentpalmer.com, and of course, email can be sent to thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. So without further ado, let's get into it. Bill, welcome back to the show. You were in the lead as far as like return appearances over and over again, but you are only the second fifth timer. You didn't get there first.
What?
I know.
And this one doesn't put me.
This one puts you at the top. You are now tied back. You are the second fifth time 5-time guest.
Oh, this is like SNL with the 5 Timers Club.
I guess, yeah.
All right. I can deal with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not, happy that, I was dethroned there for a minute, but
you know what it was? I married a podcaster, and when we told our stories about the relationship and the baby, we ended up doing 2 episodes a piece for those. So she vaulted ahead real quick. Yeah.
Well, the math adds up, and as anybody who knows me knows, math has never been my friend. No. So it's not a surprise that it turned on.
Something very important that we need to do right off the bat.
Okay.
This is not the last episode of the Palmer Files.
Oh, true. Yes. This does not count.
No. Because Bill will be, hopefully, if I ever end this thing, the last guest. But that will not be tonight.
And the ending comes with a certain amount of planning and not some just sudden, abrupt start.
Who knows? I mean,
stop, rather.
I don't
know.
Yeah.
Maybe. Who knows? You'll just have to tune in to find out, folks.
Yeah. Look, it's been a while since we have done this for real. And we are doing it on a very auspicious evening.
Is it?
Yeah,
auspicious?
we are.
Do we need to look that up?
Auspicious?
Do we need to look up auspicious?
I mean, I know what it means, but
okay, all right.
Well, can I explain what it is? Like,
yes, please. I did cut you off.
Yeah. I mean, if I say something after this that's like, well, it was a day ending in Y, not auspicious.
You're right.
This is the last episode of the Palmer Files to be recorded on Skype. This is probably one of the last podcasts ever to be recording on Skype, because Skype shuts down in like a matter of hours at this point.
It's at the end of an era.
And this, I only bring it up because this is how.
Well, first of all, let me just say that how apropos is this, that this is the first time I've used Skype with 0 issues. I opened it up. I didn't have to do login stuff. My mic setup was like 1, 2, 3. No, like, which settings, which buttons, which headphone jack. None of that. It was like, wow. Select, done.
They finally figured it out.
Just in time.
Just in time. And look, until the trip to Michigan and your adventure here and your 200th episode,
right.
We were Skype friends for a very long time. Like that was the main, this was our main platform, Bill.
This was one of, it was probably like a 50-50. Like we were on Skype as much as we were on the phone.
That's true.
And we were in quite the regular contact. So yeah. These days, not so much. We're older, we're wiser. We don't need each other's crap. You know what I mean?
Are we wiser? I'll ask. I have no shame anymore.
Well, you're wise enough to know that's probably bullshit. So there's something. You're wise enough to know that can't be right.
Look, I this is also the first time, which is odd for like my close friends but like, I guess it would have had to have been a moment at some point. Like, this is the first time I'm recording with you from the new basement studio.
Mm-hmm.
And just
let me tell you, folks, it is a basement studio from what I can see. Just let your imagination go wild with that.
Yeah. Well, if I did in real life, like I do have an in-person studio to my left, kinda, where I can sit across from a guest, and I invited someone over, like a local friend who's going to be on the show at some point, or who may have been on already. I don't know what the orders of anything
Who
is.
knows?
And Steph goes, but you're not going to invite them down into the basement, right? You're going to just tell them to come over?
Because there's work to do down there still, I think, honey.
I mean, it is unfinished, I think, would be a good descriptor of this basement.
Yeah, but let me tell you something. As soon as someone says, hey, let's go downstairs to the basement, like, all my expectations go out the window, right? Like, it could be basement, stone walls, raw foundation, and a water heater and 2 folding chairs. You know what I mean? Serial killer style. Or like completely done over, but you just don't know until you get down there, generally speaking, what you're in for.
And
so
this
just doesn't look bad. This is like middle of the road, what I would expect.
That's fair. And this is fun because Steph and I were talking as we were walking around the neighborhood recently about like what's a basement, what's an attic, because there was a 3rd floor in Phoenix necessarily, or a 2nd floor in Phoenix, but there wasn't like an attic, like the equivalent of what I'm sitting in, but like just on top of the house, right? Where you see the exposed beams from underneath the roof. And so I was like, but what about like basements? And it's like, well, out west, we don't really do basements.
Yeah.
And that's so like I think this might be us being very regional, that we're like, well, we've been in a lot of different kinds of because I, like you, is very much a like, I'm not that tall. You're taller than me, but like, I'm not that tall. Like, and every time somebody's like, well, come on down, I'm like, am I gonna have to like get scrunched down? Like, will I be able to stand up?
Is this just a crawl space with a table? Like, what are we heading?
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like with attics too. When people are like, oh, it's up in the attic, and like, as lucky as I am, the house I grew up in was fairly large, and it had a massive attic. Like, the attic was always like a giant space that we were like ready to like, oh my God, if we could get this redone, we would have like the equivalent of like 5 master bedrooms up here.
Okay.
Versus a friend's attic, quote unquote, which was literally you pull down the stairs on a string and like you watch your head immediately. We have to squat to walk around.
Now,
it's just It's like 15 boxes.
Did you have to walk on the joists, or you would put your foot through the ceiling?
Funny enough, he didn't have to, but there were spots where, like, because my dad had done work in the rooms below, dropped like cable through and stuff like that, like, some of those boards came up and didn't get put back. And my brother Dave was up there lifting weights and took a step back, and he went one leg straight into my parents' closet and fucking probably smashed up his testes in the process. If I remember correctly, he was like a teenager. I remember hearing the noise downstairs, and me and my dad were like, "What the hell was that?"
And I can only imagine the noise, because it would have been muffled if it arrived in a closet. So it's not like a normal.
We were in the living room. It was a second floor closet. You know what I mean? Like 2 rooms over, above, and it just sounded like did someone kick a door in, like, next door? Like, what was that?
That's
one of the best stories. One of the, had to be there, but, like, nothing good ever happened in that attic, and we will move on. We'll just leave it at that.
That's fair. That's fair. I had an attic like that was then finished at one point into 2 rooms. And, like, the only thing I will say is, because that became my room up there in the attic, it was fine, but I had to get used to hearing bats. Because, like, it was finished, like, the part I was in was finished, and it was finished, like, to within, like, there were, like, diagonal walls, so, like, they went as far as they could, but there was still access from the outside to the other side of those walls.
Yeah,
and so you would
like
hear
eaves, like squirrels will get in, bats. Yeah, sure.
But it was always bats. You could hear them just like moving around, and like you just had to get used to it, which is why for a long period of time, maybe like from the first summer I was in that room until, like, I don't know, sometime after college, I always slept with music on.
Because the bats would keep you up,
just
right?
to drown it out. Like, I never gave myself the opportunity to get used to it, because I was like, I'm never getting used to this. That's
listening to K106.9 all night long.
Yeah, or whatever. Like, it was. Thank God for CD
changes. One Tom Petty CD on loop for 8 hours in your sleep.
No, because I mean, we talk about, like, the technology of the day. I had an advanced stereo system that I could shuffle the 3 CDs in my CD changer. Now, it would take a minute between each song, but it was loud enough when it selected a CD, turned the turntable inside, and selected.
It almost wasn't worth it, brother. It's like waiting for a jukebox to make another track. You know what I mean? It's like you can hear the machine whirring and pulling it out. And it's like, no, I want the tracks on the disc to shuffle, and then we go to another disc. Can we do that? No, I think
I could, but I think for some reason I chose the multi. I don't know. I was if it's not clear already.
Yeah,
I was a weird kid.
I mean, folks, if you haven't figured this out by this episode, or just at least had an inkling.
Right? Although the same is probably true of, like, anyone who has a podcast that survives.
Well, let's just put it like this. Everybody's a weirdo until they hit, like, 20. I don't know. I was scrambling for an age in my head, and I'm like 12? No, I did some weird shit at 12. What about 14? Yeah, I guess 14.
Even 20? 20 seems low.
Well, at 14, you start to think like you're cooler than you are. Like, to a degree, but, like, I don't know, because I'm just thinking, like, the really weird shit when you're a little kid and, like, you don't really, like, yes, you care what other kids are going to say and make fun of you about, but, like, you don't.
But
your brain doesn't catch that before you do the thing yet.
And it's also a very much like, at that time there's a with people and without people, and you don't have control over it. You're either at school or at daycare or preschool or whatever, or you're at home, right? And even with brothers, it's very much like, this is the stuff we do in our house, and sometimes like the filter of we don't do that in public just doesn't exist.
Well, nothing ever would reveal to you how specifically maybe weird or whatever, like, your house was, by going to someone else's house for extended, like an overnight stay, or just like, oh, I was, with Jimmy and his family for like 9 hours one day. Like we went to the park and we went, you know what I mean? But whatever. But like, you start to see like all their little rules and like little weirdnesses and like, oh shit, okay, all right, we're weird like in this way, but you guys are fucking really weird, like, and they're not. Like they leave like, certain drinks on the counter. They don't put their condiments in the refrigerator or some shit. And I'm like, you guys are crazy. And meanwhile, it's like, no, kid, it's not that big a deal.
My favorite was growing up. My favorite was the bread. Cause like some people have a bread box. Some people keep bread on the counter. Some people put it in the fridge. And I think having tried a bread, like a bread drawer, bin? A pan, whatever.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Bread drawer. Yeah.
It just got moldy, and I was like, I guess I'm either not getting the right kind of bread, A, or B, I'm not eating it fast enough.
Yeah.
For this to use, and I was like, why every time I use this, it gets moldy?
Well, thanks to the internet, you can look up an article for each one of those ways to do it. And each one of those will tell you
it's the best.
That's the right way. And you can find one article to tell you it's the wrong way. So just like everything else, nowadays, there's no right answer.
By the way,
just stick with what works.
I was very excited when I found this out. Did I tell you how to get rid of, at the time of recording, this still works. I'm sure Google would prefer otherwise. Did I tell you how to get rid of AI results from Google searches?
I forget what it was, but I did see it somewhere.
Yeah.
I did see somebody who was like, oh, just do this and this, and like you don't have to see any of that.
All you have to do is put a curse.
Right.
If you put fuck in front of whatever your query or search is, for some reason, AI is polite.
Like, we don't do that.
Right? Somehow AI is very polite, or at least somehow like they don't like that word.
Right. Well, the filter is just kind of set up to react in a certain way. That's just like, we don't do any work for you now. Like, we refuse to entertain your silliness, 12-year-old.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up, because entertaining silliness is kind of the thing that like you and I started with.
Sure.
And I had an idea, and you have already gotten you've already gotten a producer credit on the first one, and you'll get it on all 4 of these that I do, maybe 5 if I do more.
I want it on the whole friggin' show.
I give it to you on specific episodes.
All right, fine. I thought it was like when you direct like the pilot episode of a TV show, you know how like you get like a running credit or like a residual check or some shit for like ever, as long as that show's being made. You're like, because you helped create. No, but I am trying
to convince Steph to help me book guests by giving her a producer credit on those episodes where she books a guest.
If that's what it takes.
So anyway, the Proust Questionnaire, you and I talked through how it would work. That it ended up on this format. If you like it, is because of Bill, and if you don't like it, it's because of me.
No. Give it to me both ways. I'm willing to take all of the accolades as easily as all the jeers.
Okay. All right. But
throw tomatoes at me through the internet, folks. Give it a shot.
Because he really wants to save on his grocery bill.
Yeah, if I can catch it. Although I hate tomatoes, so I don't know. I just make sauce, I guess.
Yeah. So 3 questions are gone, but only 3 questions are gone. So, Bill, what's the first one you want to ask me of what remains?
Well, I guess we're not going to get into too much of trying to break down this whole questionnaire and like the structuring and all of that, because it's from like the 1930s.
And then redone in the 70s. Yeah, it's a whole thing. Yeah.
Right. Because like some of these questions are like, well, let's dissect this one. Your favorite occupation. Now, this question, is this like the favorite occupation that you've had, or your favorite occupation that exists out in the world that for whatever reason seems to ring some kind of bell for you? Like if I read that flatly, which way do you take that? Your favorite occupation, go.
I feel like it is the one I do, like the one I've done, or something my favorite occupation is something that I have actually done. It's not, as a question, it doesn't sound aspirational. So it's like, all right, well, if at face value, I will give you the answer that I wouldn't accept if I was you, and then I'll give you another answer. The answer I want to give that I wouldn't accept is student. Because it feels like so low stakes. Oh, yeah. I got my paper written. I didn't pass, but I got it written. Like, so it's fine. Or like I got a D or whatever. Like the stakes are not like you won't be able to pay your bill next week because you didn't write this paper. Like that. So yeah. But we hear that kind of like professional student kind of stuff. I think with that established and not counting, I have to go with my current, I get paid to produce and edit podcasts. Like, I feel like that's my current favorite occupation. And as I've talked about on this show, I don't know if it's my actual aspirational occupation, but it's what I have now. And comparing it to everything I've ever done, I mean, this is pretty good. I still kind of don't believe that this happens. Like, I get paid to, not for this show. This show's all,
there's no money here.
No money here. And no budget, no nothing.
This is love of the game.
This is love of the game. But I do get paid to edit other things, and it's always amazing, and it's always surprising. And if I'm being honest, Bill, especially given our history, I don't know that I would have picked me as the one to make money in this industry out of everyone in our entire circle.
Fair point. But I will say that, like, you were kind of like, well, it may not have been like a thing I was like shooting for, but it was always a thing you kind of wanted to do. Like, I think you knew enough to know that, like, oh, it'd be fun to do that, or it'd be fun to have that on the side, but like, I don't know if there's a career there for me. So maybe you weren't really chasing that because the pragmatic and logical part of you probably was like, hey, that'd be fun to do. And you were doing it within your own context and your safety net of helping friends and doing your own thing.
Yeah.
So like, to say that you kind of got an offer, fell into whatever, I mean, however, like you want to phrase that, it transpired. But the fact that, like, you're doing it, I mean, that's cool as hell. I mean, like, I think that's what anybody wants to be able to say that they're doing. You know what I mean? Is that, like, okay, like, I enjoy the work I do. Like, even if it's not glamorous, even if it's not sexy, even if it's not crazy high paying, it's like,
Yeah, I mean, see now, so
to minimize burnout.
As you've been talking, I'm like, yeah, but I haven't done, I wrote about it on the blog at one point, but like that job I had at Arthur Treacher's was really good. And part of that, again, that's just fast food. So it's not different than any other fast food.
Well, but it's not that it was a good job. It was that you had fun.
And it was the people, right? Like it was, and so there is that as well. But I think what I'm doing now is probably tops on my list. Bill, before I ask you for an answer of yourself, like, how do you take this question? Like, do you take it as aspirational, or, in my life, I've done these 12 things and this is my favorite occupation?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I've only had a couple of different jobs. I've been lucky enough that, like, the first part of my working life was working for my parents in a small deli. And then, like, for the last 20 years working as a warehouse manager, they've both been easy, comfortable, minimal stress type jobs. So, like, knock on wood. But I wouldn't call them, I would hesitate to use that verbiage to call them favorite occupation. But what other occupations have I had? So, like, I can't, I mean, like, I've done, because to me, occupation implies middle, long term, like, you do it for a while. So anything that I've had fun that I got paid for, like intermittently, like
What,
you know
what
what I
if
mean?
what if I removed money from the equation?
Well, to me, see, that's how we're defining occupation, right? Because here's the thing, right? Because you kind of touched on it before, but one of the things in looking up about this Proust thing is that, like, I realized that this question, occupation can kind of like, in the way that they were phrasing it, kind of mean how we use preoccupation, right? Like, occupation in their view could be painting for the fun of
So
it.
this is
A thing that
occupies you.
your
Okay.
time. So we're using it in a vernacular of jobs.
Yeah, no. If see,
you know what I mean?
Okay, so I mean I mean it changes my answer completely.
Sure. You know what I mean?
In that way,
a third way, if you're keeping track.
Yeah, I think the answer is reading. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's because that seems like, even
That
though
feels right for you.
I got away from it at one point, like, but I've been back in it for like 20 years now. And I liked it before then. I feels like that's probably the one constant. So it feels right because I still enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then I hesitate. I know too much about you, Bill. Like, I hesitate. What is?
Well, I already skipped over doing a bit, so I mean, like, you know what I mean. The outright straight up bit I didn't even do because I forgot about it. But Don't get nervous. I'm not gonna.
Okay. All right. But
everybody be cool.
Yeah. But your favorite preoccupation?
Like, I would have to say it's just anything creative that I'm doing on a whimsy, because I don't chase these things down through enough. But like when I'm at work, if I get time to doodle, I have a drawing pad there. You know, starting stories and not finishing them, you know, these kinds of things. Just at the very least, like they tickle that aspect of me, you know. Okay. Should I be more consistent to follow these things through a little bit? Yeah, sure. You know what I mean? But, you know,
I don't know. Consistency burnt you out. Like, you did that podcast for like, there's a part of me that I still think back and I still use you on this show as an example, but like, and not in a bad way. It's just like, I do wonder, like, would you still be doing it if it was every other week? Like, would you have been able to keep going? Because I would never tell you were burnt out. But having talked to you since all that ended, the grind ended. Mm-hmm. Oh, hell yeah, Bill. You were ground out at like episode 40. Like, you know,
I wouldn't go that far back, but that's when I feel like I was just getting into my stride. But like by 150, by like 125, I was starting to kind of feel a little bit of boredom, or a little bit of like, this is getting a little repetitive. I need to zhuzh this up somehow. I need to kind of bring something other in here. And so, yeah, I mean,
look, I'm all for you getting back into the creative arts on a more regular basis. I won't even say consistent, just regular basis, whatever that means. Because I am, I don't even want to say of the bit, but like, I've read some of your, you haven't done them in a while, but like the satire when you write it, not when it's like bouncing off of me or Ed or Uncle Jay or like whatever, but the satire when you sit down and write it, I love your satire.
Well,
and I know you do art too, but like there's something very, very, I don't know. You see my core when you write your own, when you write that satire, and I just.
All right, cool. Well, I appreciate hearing that, because that brings my two great tastes together. You know, that's my chocolate and peanut butter right there. It's like me being silly and me writing something that's like creatively fun and interesting. Like, you know what I mean? And I don't get the opportunity to do it as much anymore. And to be honest with you, the fact that you say it surprises me a little bit to specify into satire or like comedic stuff, because like generally speaking, probably didn't do as much of that as like I would want to.
No, I think you
outside of the parameters of the podcast and stuff like that.
I think it was maybe once a year on the blog, if that, towards the end. Like,
when we helped out Jay and Grant for Podtoberfest, there was probably more comedy things going on there in the process, because it was like we kind of come up with bits and segments. So like maybe that's where like you got some of the first exposure to that. You know what I mean?
Yep. And I heard some of the pitches. Like I promised I wouldn't do this, but I'm doing it anyway. Like I gave you crap for like 4 years about the cat post you were going to do.
Yeah, that was a good idea too. And I was having trouble finding it.
I'm not going to tell anybody about it in case it works, because the reveal on the cat post was just like, it was just chef's kiss, but like that kind of
cool. It was all about cool cats. We can just leave it at that, baby. Yep.
But like just knowing some of the bits, like maybe that's kind of where like time makes it fuzzy, because like not a lot of it made it to the public, but like I knew about it. I was like, this is really good.
And I always tell you that's why I'm envious of like, you know, you being able to stay on track and put out, you know, your written stuff on a regular basis. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. Like I can certainly see how like, and this is not to knock the creativity that takes, but you know, generally speaking, like, you know, you're writing like reviews and almost kind of like reactionary pieces.
Yeah.
You know, where it doesn't, it's a different muscle to flex. You know what I mean?
I need to get, in fact, it's so much a different muscle to flex that Zapata, who will be a guest in the future for these questions as well, he's like, how come you haven't written any poetry in a while? And Steph's like, how come you don't write me any poetry? I heard you used to write poetry. And it's like,
shit, you're in trouble.
No, I'm not in trouble, but like I do occasionally try and like get there. And I feel like mentally or like skill wise, like on like a D&D skill tree, like I have put some time into it, but like I don't even know how to access that anymore.
I'm the same way with poetry. Like I feel like that was a young man's game almost.
Yeah, like actually
there was something about me back then that was more in tuned and inclined to also not feel so like I would just do that. Whereas now it's like I got to think about it or find a reason and what's hitting me. You know what I mean? Oh, what's the thing? Oh, like, and nothing ever comes across my path as a thing to write a poem about. You know, whereas back in the days, like it would just come out of me. And usually, don't get me wrong, it was because I was all lovesick or some shit.
Hey, but you know what? I would argue mainly because I've been going through it for another episode of this show. Because why not use embarrassing stuff, because it probably makes good podcast. But like for every lovesick poem or lovey-dovey or like romantic poem, like there were other things. Like that was only 50% of everything I wrote. I would argue most of us in hindsight remember the lovey crap stuff because we still kind of remember the bad relationship or the one that got away or whatever. Like, but like go through those notebooks if you can. I guarantee you there's at least 50% of like just like that kind of either descriptive or like, I don't know, it was a moonlit night and it was warm, you know, like just.
Yeah, you'd probably surprise yourself by what you find. Yeah. If not the whole poem, but parts of it.
But at the same time, you say it's a young man's game and I go like, I don't like, I feel like it's probably more like a muscle than anything else. Like if you haven't done it in a long time, and I'm trying to get back into it just because I'd like to write other things.
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like there are professional writers of poetry,
but they've been doing it. They didn't stop for 20 years. Right.
I can't see Maya Angelou and say, it's a young person's game. She's like, I've been writing it forever, kid. Like, you know what I mean? Like, absolutely. It's one of those things. Either like, you know, if you don't stick with it, maybe like when you go back to it, it doesn't feel quite right or something. You know, but to bring it back around, I mean, that's the kind of stuff though that like
that's what you want to be preoccupied with.
Yeah, just creative chases. Because like, let's look at it like this. Like, there's plenty of things that I'll get into that I'm into that like, there's no reason for me to daydream like basically like fanfic of a TV show that I like that will never go this way, never go down a certain path or whatever.
Okay.
But my brain will chase that idea down.
Okay.
And I feel compelled because like I'm stuck on it for 2 days to just at least commit it to a document.
Get it out.
I'm not going to sell Netflix a miniseries on They Live that connects all the dots and answers questions that the movie from 1980 whatever leaves unresolved. Because the movie didn't bother answering questions that it didn't want to bother. But I sat there one day and watched it, and I was like, oh yeah, if you kind of did it today, yada yada yada, you could do it like this, you could make it a series, you could answer this question, you could answer that question. Where did the sunglasses come from? Who was making the sunglasses? And then all of a sudden it was contact lenses in the third arc, in the third act. Like, what is that about?
All right, before somebody else steals this and sells it to Netflix, we're just going to move on.
I'm sure not the only one who noticed that there are unanswered questions to They Live, the Rowdy Piper epic.
Let's move on. Let's move off of occupations and preoccupations.
Okay.
To what's question 2?
And I don't know which way this is going to go, but it just seemed to stick. And keep in mind, like for me, like these questions that I picked were because like some of the other questions were just kind of like, I don't know. Like, I know these are supposed to be like interview questions, but like they just didn't feel like that.
Okay.
So I ended up here with these. But your idea of happiness, which, I'm not as like, had some mental gymnastics go on as I did with the previous question. This one seemed pretty straightforward, but, yeah. It just seemed like one that maybe there was something there for you,
Yeah, it's one of those. It's one of the few, maybe not few. I feel like if I really wanted to, I could make every single one of these be about like, well, I would probably have a different answer before I had the kid.
Yeah, right.
And I don't say that lightly, but like obviously it's a monumental life thing. Mm-hmm. But I don't. So this is. It's going to sound bad, but, I'm a pessimist. Mm-hmm. I don't spend a lot of time in joy. I'm working on that. Like, you know what I mean?
Right,
like I'm taking the time with a newborn or, infant, I guess. Soon enough, he'll be a toddler. Like, it goes quick. Like, when people say it goes quick, like, I think part of it is it goes quick, and part of it is like days have no meaning, and then all of a sudden it's 2 months later. Right. But like, I only bring it up because, in the last Proust episode with Chris, I talked about one of my faults being that I don't celebrate things. Mm. And so there's this thing where my idea of happiness is, or at least was, I guess it still is something that you talked about when it came to the preoccupation part. I think that being in the flow for whatever it is, right? Like whether I'm playing guitar, writing something, editing something, having a conversation, like recording, no matter what, like when I'm in the zone, the flow, when it's going and it feels effortless, that's the moment. Like that's the best. And so a lot of that has to do with the act of creation, because a lot of the time, and anybody who's ever tried to create anything, or anybody who's ever been to school knows this, there are essays that take you hours to write, even 500 words. And then there are essays that you write in like 500 words in 5 minutes. That second one, that's the flow. That's like, I've got it. Like, I know where I'm going. I'm not thinking too fast for my hands to type or write. I'm at the same, like I'm getting it out. And then when I'm done. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And those moments when you're in them, they feel amazing because you feel almost invincible.
Yeah.
And at the moment, like, when when little Palmer looks at me and smiles, like it is happiness. But at the same time, for the last 40 plus years, if I could write something in no time flat without thinking about it and it just pours out of me, that's been like the essence of happiness for me. And it might be one of the reasons why I don't celebrate 100 or 400 or the round numbers. And I don't take time to look back because I'm always on, like, I'm basically addicted to creating.
Right.
And so I'm always writing the next blog post in the hope that the next one will be 5 minutes of 1,500 words. And I don't know where it came, and I read it and I go, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah, I think I kind of have to agree with you for my answer, to this, because, hearing you say it, it's echoing stuff that I've said before, and I really didn't have like a clear-cut answer for this question anyway. And I kind of, like, in the back of my head thought it's going to sound like a lot like probably my answer for the first one, but I have to agree with you. You gave good examples of it, but the flow state stuff of making a thing and like having the instant clarity that comes in the beginning of it, like, oh, yeah, I know exactly what that is. I know it top to bottom, straight through. And if I jump on it right now, I think I'm going to pound it out. And I've done it a handful of times. And compared to other times when I've very similar kind of had a very clear vision, but maybe not all the way through to the end point.
Okay.
On a creative writing or something like that. But to see the trajectory of it, stick with it, chase it down,
and finish like that. I think
finish. Yes.
I think that's the. So I remember, in college, I wrote a short story in that same flurry, right? Mm-hmm. However, I didn't have an end. It just kind of ends, right? Yeah. Like the flow state ended, and the short story ended where it did. And whoever's been a creative in their free time, who hasn't done this? I was in a writing class and I was like, they're like, hey, you need to write a short story. And I was like, well, I've got this one. Like, I'll dig this one out. That's how that goes. I couldn't come up with a better ending than just the way my flow state ended. Yeah, and so I presented it to the class, and like, you get feedback, and I had like of the like 20 people in the class, like there were 14 different interpretations of the end. And I was like, well, these are all kind of good. And it's like, God, I wish that flow state had lasted just a bit longer, and I would have actually ended on my own terms. Cause right now it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. Like you can come up with an ambiguous ending sometimes for like a short story thing where it's just like, wait, I don't know if that's satisfying, but I could end it right here. Well, Bill, and it would just be one of those type of stories, like, you know what I mean? And I guess that is where I ended, because I don't have anything past this point.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that's like, I know you don't read Stephen King stuff, but, his short stories are great. But so many of his short stories were like churned out back in the days, and he would sell them off to magazines. And some of them have like solid banger endings.
Okay.
But a lot of them have like these ambiguous, like, and then the bad man smiled, and Jimmy knew that this was the end of everything. And then
it ends, and then it's done.
And it's like, well, what does that mean? And it's like, how is that an ending? What happens to Jimmy? Like the next, like he just met the bad man, and now they're in the same room, and it's like, well, I don't know, man. It's just, it is what it is. But like, yeah. So like when I've had those moments where it's like, oh no, I did have an ending for it. I stayed true and through the project.
Yeah. And
then got some kind of validation for it in that, like, apropos of like getting into details, like, oh, it was kind of like an internet-based group project, and like got really good feedback from other people, or like, like seem and genuine Like,
Genuine
hey, this is
feedback.
good.
Not just
And praise too. Like, hey, this is good. This is a good idea. Like, I had some people tell me a couple of things. They were like, you should just keep this for yourself, bro. Like, I don't know why you're sharing this. You could make this a novel series. Why are you sharing this here? Like, keep this for yourself. The question is your idea of happiness. Is it like, the question is, it's like, it's kind of like tilted to like defining like what happiness is, like in some more esoteric kind of way, as opposed to just like, where do you find it? What has like made you the most fulfilled kind of things? And like,
yeah, well, I think that you and I are the most jilted people to answer this question, because while you don't necessarily create like you want to, you still have a want and a need to, even if you don't fulfill that.
Yeah.
And I still have a want and need and do fulfill that. And yet the reason that you and I continue to want and need to is because we're still searching for that thing, right? Like that. If we were completely, I think this is true of all artists. If you were completely happy and fulfilled, you wouldn't have to create the thing. That like full stop period. Like I mean, it's a little bit lay down on the couch and let's talk about it. But like at the same time, I feel like that's what I'm like. That's why I think like, okay, well, that's why sometimes that's why I still have my old journals, because like some of those flow states exist in there, and it's like, well, I keep them around because like maybe I can learn, like maybe I can figure it out. Like obviously not the case. Like you need that lightning in a bottle, and there's nothing else. That's exactly what it is. It's needle in a haystack, like whatever. All the cliches, like that's what that flow state is, and maybe that's why that's the reason it's like the true happiness, because like you don't get it all the time. And you have to work for it. And sometimes it just appears in front of you and you have to grab it. And sometimes like you're not going to see it for a few years.
Yeah. You just have to like ride it out. Like when that instinct kind of just happens, where it's like your brain just kind of starts to put all the pieces together, and part of you kind of subconsciously recognizes that's what this is. Just do it. Then like, you're kind of a fool to not. You know what I mean? And
well, and those of us who have known it, like we're even worse, because we're like if like we'll take it feels like it might be a flow state. You know what I mean? Like we'll take a swing at something that's like, oh, I was like 10 minutes later you're like, that nope, not it.
No. Yeah, I thought I had something here.
Yep.
And it's like, now you had the opening 4 lines. That's about it.
That's all you get. Yeah.
It's all you had, kid. It's a cool setup, those 4 lines, but that's gonna
need a little bit more. Yeah.
You're gonna need a little bit more. You're gonna have to chase it down.
All right. So let's go on to number 3.
So this one, I kind of feel like I probably know what some of these answers are gonna be.
Ooh. Okay.
Only because I just know you now fairly well. Favorite heroes in fiction.
In fiction, I liked this question. Like I saw it and I was like, I'm not going to think about this one. And I was like, but I wonder how long it's going to last, because it gives
way
me...
to not come prepared, I guess.
Well, no, that was the whole reason. Like I think a lot of these questions, it's like ask me next week. If I don't come prepared, like it might be different. Yeah. But in fiction, there's definitely a few, I think the most modern one is probably Tony Stark. The most modern one. Sure. And I think that I don't know, for anybody keeping score, it's not Iron Man. It's Tony Stark.
There's a distinction.
Because his arc into, especially Iron Man 3, which is a movie most people hate, but I love because it kind of really, I was seeing myself on the screen through his post-traumatic stress anxiety stuff. And it's like, oh, no, like he's still trying to go through it. And, that panic attack at the beginning of that movie might be the most real thing I've ever seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right. Too relatable.
Yeah. It's like I remember being in the theater going like, this has to end before I have a panic attack.
Right.
Beyond that though, I do absolutely love, Tolkien's universe, but there's not anyone there where I'm like, oh, this is the best. I'd like it to be. Like, I think for the memes, even before this was a thing, like Tom Bombadil would have been like an answer when I was much younger.
Sure.
But I know that's just for the funny. That's not serious.
Right.
There is this, there are a couple characters and they're fleeting, and I haven't reread those books enough, and I haven't seen them in mediums. I know that at least one of them exists in another medium, which are from Clive Barker's fantasy stuff. Specifically, there's a couple characters in Galilee and The Great and Secret Show that are like, all right, so some of this stuff is really cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like maybe it's because of the way Barker writes these people with, I don't want to say like unlimited power, but they feel like the genie from Aladdin. And yet almost all the people he writes with that kind of power never abuse it. And that's like, that always stuck with me. For two reasons.
Well, okay, go ahead.
One, it would have been very easy for him to write completely different novels if they abused that. And two, those novels would not be as memorable if they just were like, well, I can control time, so.
Right.
Whatever.
Right. Well, that's the thing with Clive Barker, is that if he's not writing like the weirdest, borderline depraved type horror, it's just completely fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So like, Great and Secret Show might be one of the few books you and I have in common that we've read and are really kind of like quasi obsessed with.
Yeah. And it's to a point where I will add to that saying like, I want to reread it, but I don't want to reread it.
I got halfway through the last time I was trying to reread it, and not for any particular reasons, but I do know that I was obsessed. Well, I couldn't turn it off anyway, I should say. Sometimes with some books, I just get like, I can't turn off certain aspects that my brain is doing while I'm reading it, right? Like, for instance, finally got around to reading The Shining. The main character is called Jack. He is described literally. How could they not have cast Jack Nicholson? Like the first couple of paragraphs where like you're reading about him and how he's like always simmering and feels like a ticking time bomb, basically. Like, yeah, it's fucking Jack Nicholson, of course. But so like I could only, like, it got distracting. Like I could only see the movie. I could only see Jack Nicholson. And like my brain was doing this kind of thing. And for Great and Secret Show, my brain was breaking it down into a TV series. Like at some point I was like, oh, okay, this is a thing that happens a lot lately. I'm bringing it up again. But like it was, my brain was breaking it down as a TV series. Like, oh, this is how you would do this, I guess, right? This is, and then once like that started to happen, it was like my brain was on two parallel rails at the same time, like me digesting the text on the page and then my brain simultaneously,
and this is the end of episode 5,
formatting it in my head, like, oh, okay, yeah, you would probably change that because it's a little dated now, blah blah blah, like, and this kind of thing. But yeah, like, and I'll say about the characters in that, I haven't read Galilee, but that's at least in that book, like the good characters are good, but they're not like goody good.
No, they're human
angels. Yeah, they're not pristine angels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't mean like they're anti-heroes or borderline bad guy with a gun. It just means that like in other weirder ways, it's like, they are fallible and struggling and in a really weird environment, not understanding what the fuck is going on half the time. And that seems relatable, but yeah. I think I pulled you off the track a little bit.
No. I also think like I'm trying to think of like others, and I just can't. Like I've kind of fallen into this like I think it's a bit of a rut. Like when people ask about favorites, where when it comes to movies specifically, I just think about like, was the writing good? I don't even, like, I don't want to denigrate the actors, but like, I'm just like, that was an amazing story with great dialogue. And if you have one of the two of those things, I'm probably in. Great dialogue can save a bad plot, and a great plot can save bad dialogue. But like, that's kind of how I measure all of it.
Yeah, because in the end, what you take away is like, well, I know people latch on to like characters in ways that I don't quite get. Like, you know, I don't know, maybe it's just the internet and we get to see inside everybody else's friggin' brain now. But like, you know, people will just obsess about a particular character and just like, you know, and I'm like, yeah, that guy's good, but the show, what's happening around him is equally as interesting as what he does in that environment or the choices that he makes.
There could be an argument to be said that some of this has to do with the spin-off podcast you did, Preacher vs. Preacher. And I don't mean to be very specific about it, except I do, because you and I and our friends, we dissected shows, and maybe it's to a point of maybe this is just what geeks always did, because obviously you didn't need a podcast to do this, but like, we will talk about the other things.
It's a book club.
You know what I mean? Like, it is a book club, but it's also very specific. Like, and so I think maybe part of it is that like, we've always kind of had this, but look at everything else.
Right.
Oh my God.
Right.
Did you see what happened in the background? And be like, no.
Well, it's like David and Goliath, right? Like, we don't know any off the top of your head. What do you know about David? Is he that David? I don't know. But it's like a folklore or it's like a story, but you know what he did.
Why is it that every time you talk, I see another show? It's like David and Goliath, but this David is not that David. Goliath is that Goliath, but this David's like some accountant from down the road that like just whatever. And like people are like, oh, it's great you slew Goliath. And he's like, that wasn't me.
I'm David Burnington or something. You're looking for David Marshall. Like, you know, right. Exactly. You know, exactly. That would be the twist. That would be the twist on a modern day show. That is actually the twist on my Different Strokes fucking remake, but let's not even get into that. Okay. Where like,
this is what happens though. When you and I get together.
Arnold and Willis were not the real Arnold and Willis. They were like two other kids.
When you and I get together, this is what happens. I think because our friendship started with a collaboration on something.
Right.
We're like, oh, and then the pitch machine just starts up.
It just goes. It's just, we're not even touching the throttle, but the lever went over on its own. Yeah. But yeah, man, because it's like, well, here's the thing with the heroes in fiction, right? Especially, I think nowadays, it's like, I think this is why certain things work better than others. It's like we were just saying, we're like, if that story in that world isn't as dynamically interesting or just on par with that great character, then it's not going to vibe right. It's going to feel off, right? So, like,
well, hold on, like
this feels like some of like the sci-fi original shows. Sometimes I would watch them. I would be like, yes, this detective is cool and interesting, and I like this actor. But everything else around them is kind of like meh. Okay. You know, I hope this guy goes on to better things. You know what I mean?
So who is your favorite hero in fiction?
I guess sometimes it probably would depend on like how you define hero.
Okay.
But
I'm not saying the good guy, but let's say main character.
Yeah. But well, geez. My brain just started going further down the rabbit hole of like, well, which heroes? All of the Marvel Universe because you read comic books growing up? You know what I mean? But so you mentioned Preacher. That was like an important book to me. But Jesse, a little bit of a more modern lens, is not the greatest guy, but super complicated.
Yeah.
You know, and actually makes bad decisions and stuff like that. So
and maybe more important, there are consequences to those bad decisions.
Well, that's one of the few books that feels like when the consequences come back around, they are.
Oh, they come back around.
Yeah, they are equal and then multiplied, as in good fiction they probably should always be, you know? But outside of him, there aren't many that kind of linger for me in the ways maybe for some other people. But because like, you know, for like all the Stephen King I've read, the only one that really stands out is one of the boys from Eyes of the Dragon, which if you don't know the book, it's like it's a medieval fantasy, like young adults kind of thing that Stephen King wrote for his daughter, really. I don't know for how true it is, but supposedly he was either telling her the story at night and was like, I should write this fucking down, or it was just kind of like a thing that came to his head, like, I don't have anything that my kids could read.
Oh, okay.
You know, that kind of a thing. So it's a medieval fantasy. King dies. There's two sons. The older one is blamed for it, but the older one is only like 14. His little brother's like 9 or 10. So the 9 or 10-year-old becomes king because his brother, who gets blamed for the murder, ends up locked in a castle, in a high steeple. But that older brother, Peter, despite being locked up in the steeple and like having everything taken away from him, stays positive, finds his ways to work out from up there how to get out and what's really going on down below, and uses some kind of like ingenious-y kind of like things to get himself out of the situation, and like really kind of rises to the top of a thing where like at first you kind of feel like, oh, we're not going to spend any time with that character. He's going to be locked up there the whole time. But it's like, no, you spend a good amount of time getting in his head and how he, you know, his head works and stuff like that. And so in that, he's kind of like a different kind of, his heroism is just not giving up, even though he's up there for years trapped and locked away.
Bill,
like, you know what I mean?
Bill, do you feel like you're trapped in a castle?
Listen, buddy, if we're going to start psychoanalyzing me now, we're going to be here a while.
For a long time, I was the one helping Bill. And now, as the credits to this series of episodes can attest, Bill is now helping me with stuff, this time as a credited executive producer. This is a change for us, but it's great. One of the reasons that Bill and I are still friends, and we may have spoken about this during the friendship episode, is collaboration. With his podcast on some kind of semi-permanent break, mine's the only one going. And so if we're going to collaborate, it's going to be on some of the hypothetical pitches he mentioned in this episode, or the ones that happen when we talk on the phone, or it's going to be something to do with this podcast. We started our friendship, before that, our knowing each other as collaborators. And it's what we love to do. Even if nothing comes to fruition, it's like practice. So when these things come down for real, when this series of episodes was something I spoke with Bill about, we knew the language and how to go about the discussion of pros and cons. For us, an idea is just the beginning, as it should be. And perhaps that's why we both enjoy creative flow states. Thanks for listening to the Palmer Files episode 155. And now for the official business. The Palmer Files releases every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. If you're still listening, I encourage you to join the discussion. You can find all related ways to contact us in the show notes. Bill's podcasts, the Wicked Theory podcast, and maybe even Preacher vs. Preacher or the DC TV Report are still available at this time, but wickedtheory.com is where you can see all of his endeavors and where he does still post on rare occasions. You should check it out. Bill Sweeney was an executive producer for this episode. The music for this episode was provided by Henno Heitur. Email and comments can be sent to this show at thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. And remember, your home for all things Agent Palmer is agentpalmer.com. All right, Bill, I have a question for you, and you kind of talked about it a little bit, but we touched on it. This was a game in the 70s? Would you be all right with like if for episode 200 as a celebration we were like, all right, like here's the questionnaire, like let's just ask each other questions.
Like as is? Just like these questions?
Yeah.
You know me. These questions aren't good enough. Like, I need them to be a little bit more dynamic, or at least like let people kind of bend them around a little bit.
I gotcha.
But I mean, it's not to say fun can't be had and surprising answers can't come out of it all. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Going into this today, I was like, I don't know. Are these going to be good questions, or is this going to be interesting? Is this going to have any fun to it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, probably, I guess.
As if you and I don't have fun every time we get on the mic.
Right. But also, hey, that's what I do, right? I kind of overthink it a little bit.
I told you I wouldn't put you on the couch.
True.
All right.
I'm going to fall asleep if you put me on the couch.
All right. So you have one final question for me.
I do, I guess. I just don't know who else to ask, right? I mean, I think I kind of know the answer, but let's get someone else's opinion. So, like, when you're watching, like, interviews, other interviews, and the person being interviewed, like, a lot of times will go, oh, that's a good question. Good question.
Yeah.
Good question. What's going on there?
Okay. I edit a podcast in my day job where occasionally, it doesn't happen often, but we have a questionnaire that's like the second half of the episodes.
Okay.
And it's like the same batch. There's like 10 questions, but the host will ask 7 of them or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've heard the guests go, that's a great question. But not all of them say that's a great question to the same question, right? Like, I am a very good person to ask this to. I genuinely believe all of it is wasting time, but for people who genuinely mean that's a great question, all they're saying is, hold the phone. I've never thought of it in that way before.
Right.
I need a moment. But like, there is a part of it that's like, when you hear that, sometimes you're like, he just asked why. Like, sometimes it's like, oh, what's your favorite color, Bill?
Well, I don't think that's a good question at all. But I get what you're saying. You're right. I think you're right. I think sometimes it's people are just kind of like befuddled or stunted by the question.
I think maybe.
And so it's not like, oh, bad question. It's just like, okay, I got to think about it for a second. So they just kind of say, oh, that's a good question, because that's the thing you say, because like you didn't have an instant thought as a response.
Also,
versus like you said before, like, oh no, it's a good question because like I've been asked a lot of questions and no one's ever asked that one. So
there's a part of me that believes.
Shut up. Either way, it's a let me think about it for a second.
There's a part of me that thinks too, like, shouldn't you take the time to think about every answer before, like, especially in media? Like, if you have an answer right away, you weren't listening to the question. I'm sorry.
Well, that's what's funny about watching like some old interview shows, like Dick Cavett, and then he'd have somebody on, and I'd be like, "Yes, I know that you're recording a television show, but I'm going to take my sweet time in answering everything." And sometimes they just don't answer a question right away. You know what I mean? Whereas I think now everyone's too media savvy, and it's just like, they have to say something.
But that's the thing. I mean? So, okay, but that goes back into our history because we are in Michigan, and you and I, and you, myself, and Grant are with Steph, because Henno wasn't around for a very special episode of Gotham Lights.
Right.
I got to say 3 words. Because anytime Steph or you or even Grant, I love him to death, but anytime anybody asked me a question, because I was the newest to the show, if I took more than a beat to answer, Grant would fill the space, and I'd never get back. Yeah. And so look, there are people like Grant in media that like they're more radio than anything else. So you have to fill the space. Dead air is bad air.
Yeah,
versus like, I don't know, there's a part of me, especially with the old Cavett shows that you bring up, like they'll let it linger. They'll pan to Dick Cavett looking at the guest,
waiting.
And it's like, this is, I know it doesn't sound like gripping television, but it's better than half the stuff that's on now.
Yeah. And now they wouldn't, if that happened, they would just edit it down. You know what I mean? At least, you know, in the old days, or more so, they would let it linger. They would leave it in because of the vibe, you know, of the era or that show itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it was like, you know, it was much more leisurely and laid back, and you know, whereas everything now is a machine. We got to go. We got you here for 7 minutes. Tell an anecdote and get the fuck out. You know.
Well, I'll say this: no one's ever said that's a great question, Palmer.
Oh shit.
So now, I have something to be aspirational for.
You're gonna have to mark it down in your calendar, like, you know what I mean, and be like, finally got it, folks. You know,
or maybe it'll just be one of those things that you never get. Like, you never get to the end of the rainbow. It's fine. Clearly, I'm just not that good at this.
Damn it. One day.
Maybe.